let's take a look at how the dailies are reporting the big stories. We're joined by Mr. N868m, public affairs analyst. Mr. N868m, we just listened to billionaire businessman Aliko Dangote saying, well, our hands are sort of tied. We can only play the cards we're dealt with. And he paints the reality of Nigerians, or at least a lot of Nigerians, who live from hand to mouth. And the Vanguard newspaper, Mr. N868m, also follows up on that one, still painting that picture vividly. Middle East war, business closures, job losses loom. NECA, NLC, LCCI, ASBOM say soaring fuel prices could cripple economy, urge immediate government action to save situation. Consumers groan as petrol hit 1,371 naira per litre in Abuja, Lagos. Others, APC governors to roll out social interventions to cushion inflationary pressures. So my question is, it's almost a month since that war began. When will that social intervention be rolled out? Mr. N868m, the big story, you're not government, I'm clearly not asking you, but what do you make of this?
Yeah, good morning. It's my pleasure to join once again. Well, of course, what has happened has happened. A responsive government should have been putting things in place. Not now we are discussing social intervention. I have never had them in any of their fora, just like you rightly mentioned, that the war is about going to about a month now, and there's nothing coming forth from the government that this is what we are going to do. In transport sector, we are going to roll out maybe LNG bus or reduce maybe those who are using train from one state to the other, cut the price by half. And also when it comes to food as well, that this is what they are going to do, especially for the farmer, those who are in the rural area, helping them with their food produce so that they can reduce the cost of food. It's just in Nigeria that we don't have maybe kind of welfare package for citizens in terms of things like this, which I felt that government can still do better. I'm sure most of them now, they are planning for their convention, they are planning for how they are going to be nominated, how they are going to be put forward for forthcoming election. So, and I think one of the responsibility of government is to make, apart from protection of life and property, is to make sure that the ease of earning a living is priority. Citizen welfare is number one priority, but I'm not seeing that in this government. But I just pray and I wish that since they said that they will soon roll out social intervention, they should do that. They said the stitches time saves life. So there's no delay on this. It's biting hard. Petroleum products, what I used to buy for 50,000, that's risen to almost 70,000 and all of that. So who is accounting or who is going to pay me? It's not as if they want to increase civil servant salary so that they can mitigate against the hardship, the effect, adverse effect of this war going on in the Middle East.
We're hopeful, and it's very sad what I see from the federal government, but not just them, the state government as well, because I think it's only Oyo State that has said they will give, I don't know what it's called, I just give it a name, more like an incentive of 10,000 for the next 3 months for workers, at least the public servants. Private sector people will have to deal with their own crisis themselves, but there are so many fiscal measures that can be done. So some incentives, some fiscal measures from the production, from the downstream end, from even, there's so many things. There are so many options on the table. By just seeing government borderline docile, in my view, as long as you have not spoken from 28th of March till now, I see it as borderline docile, whether you're federal, February, sorry. Whether you're federal government or state government. All the state government have been shouting, money, money. The president has done well in making sure that our FAC revenue is quite, I can almost say borderline astronomical. What are they using the money for?
Even the MASA, the LPA, there are several ways they can reduce the cost of the oil. I heard the man talking about the landing cost. For every vessel that battered at the port, or that make use of Nigerian waterway, there are heavy costs, charges they impose on these things. So I think in times like this, just like you said, and also tax and other levies can be reduced, slashed to 50%, so that the total cost or the overhead cost will not be borne by the citizen, because Nigeria is like, our economy is revolved around the oil and gas, so to say.
Yeah, exactly. I can list like 5 to 6 things that the government can do. And it's not as if they're not aware of these things. How they are not taking action just beats me. Anyway, let's go to this Nigeria. 868 million naira fraud, how ex-accountant general got 72-year jail term. Judge, he diverted defense funds into personal investment, laundered public money through proxy accounts. So we're seeing some, good fight against anti-corruption. So the man has now been found guilty. If he doesn't appeal, he will spend 72 years. That means literally the rest of his life in prison. Because looking at the picture, I don't think he's anything less than 50 years old. What do you make of this story?
Yes, it's a good one, but I just hope that it becomes more popular, because the last time I heard something of this, it will have been almost 12, 14 years ago, that notable government official were jailed and all of that. So it's a good one to serve as deterrent, and also because some state governors that have been prosecuted in the past, we don't know the head of some of those cases and all of that, maybe because they were highly connected, or maybe what is obtainable in Nigeria sometimes has started to be corrected. Once you join the ruling party, you are bound to be given a soft landing. So those cases, I think they should be revisited, whether you belong to Party A or you belong to Party B. Corruption is corruption. If you embezzle money and there are clear evidence, and also our judge, they can as well continue to do better. Not that they will treat, sometimes in Nigeria, when it comes to corruption case, you think we have two different constitutions, one for those who are highly connected, and one for those, as we normally call, on your own. So it's a good one, and I think other public servants, whether elected or appointed, should learn from this, and they should make sure the Nigerian funds are used for fund. And can you imagine funds that are meant for defense? When we are battling with security challenges every now and then. So if you do the crime, you should serve the time.
The context here is, while it looks good that he's been sentenced to 72 years, well, it looks alarming. It's 8 years for 9 counts, so that he's meant to serve them concurrently. So at the end of the day, it might not even serve as much as 8 years. And that's why Jeffrey referenced if there's an appeal or what have you. It's quite interesting to see, because you see 72 years, you're like, what?
Exactly.
Well, it's concurrent, isn't it?
Let's talk about more stories. Thank you for that, Ricardo. Let's talk about the same paper, deadly explosions. I want you to touch on 2 stories in one. There's political story, there's anti-corruption and all of that. Deadly explosions rocked Niger, Niger bridge destroyed, 8 killed. Insurgents shift tactics to isolate border communities. Let's start with that, but I also wanted you to touch on the PDP preparing for its convention on March the 29th. But let's talk about this Niger and Kwara. Like they are the, will I call it the ground zero or the hot spots of insecurity besides, the up north? I'm talking about the middle belts now.
Yes, I would say it's been common. They are becoming the hotspots, Niger and especially Kwara, for the incessant attack or killing or activities of all these, whether Boko Haram or whatever they call themselves. Unfortunately, it's just a pity that, when you continue to do the same thing and expect different results, they say that kind of person is, don't let me use the word. So you can't continue to do the same thing and expect different results. I think the government should begin to measure up and have different approach. They've been talking about state police. They gathered was it 2 days or over the weekend, state police, they are just paying lip service to this. We have a situation at hand. Before it will escalate to neighboring towns and city and state, I think they should arrest it. They said citizens time saves now. So government should come up with different approach and also localize. And I don't know, it was not in Kwara where I think the local government chairman, they came out to say that no, we don't want our allocation from federal government to be paid to us. Please pay to the state government, because of course maybe they are selected or appointed, as it were. Like they say, who pays the piper dictates the tune. So it's just all about their personal interest. If it doesn't affect them, they don't take it seriously. But I think our government can do better. It's becoming too many attacks, too many explosions, especially in Niger and what's it called, Ilorin, which is a Kwara state. Also talking about the PDP set convention, and there are still a lot of things that are still to come, because what if they do their convention just like the one we had in Ibadan, and somebody came up and say the ruling, or there's a ruling and say this thing should not have been done by these caucus or this faction and all of that. But they know what to do to put their house in order. Let's see what days will unfold.
Well, as far as insecurity is concerned, when the explanation is put through that, in the Northeast, the insurgents are only desperate because of the pressure from the firepower of the military on them in the Sambisa forest and environs. What about the North Central? What is the explanation for the constant attacks, in Kwara State, in Kogi State, and in Niger State? And so we're expecting to see, more deterrence in the attacks, on vulnerable populations, particularly in Nigeria's North Central. But let's check on other papers this morning. New Telegraph is our next port of call. And of course, insecurity is also the big story here. Spike in terrorist attacks. There's lapse in intelligence gathering analysis. And this is ascribed to AVM Adesoya. There are quite a number of writers here. As retired generals identify causes, prefer solutions. Society approach key in war against terror. That's the former Chief of Army Staff speaking. Says Nigeria needs more troops because of vast landmass. Several feared killed as bomb hits bus in Kwara State, and terrorist bombs bridge linking communities in Bogu, that's in Niger State. Let's speak to the big story in the caption, which is being ascribed to lack of intelligence gathering. Is that supposed to be the case, Mr. Adeta, especially when you consider that there's supposedly a vibrant partnership between Nigeria's Ministry of Defense and the United States of America that has seen the arrival of U.S. Army officials into Nigeria, and of course clarification has been provided that they're not boots on ground, but they're here for military training and intelligence. So why is intelligence now the problem, according to experts?
I see that governance in Nigeria, is so the gap between the governed and the people who are in the position of authority. The gap is so much that and anything security or intelligence gathering should be localized. I'm sure some of our elected or appointed leaders who, for example, they don't stay in their local community, weekend. Some of them spend most of their time in Abuja. Let me use Abuja for example. Some of them spend their time in the state capital of their respective states. They hardly mingle among those people who are their governed or from their constituency where they came from and all of that. So why would there not be lapse in the intelligence gathering? regardless of we have, yes, international ally, whether US or France or UK, that they are on ground for training and all of that. But you still need to localize intelligence gathering because it happens in our locality. So if there's anything they must do better is to close the gap between the citizen, between the grassroots and those who are governing us. So those are the things that they should look into. Have what I would call town hall meeting, not only when there's election, you understand, involve the traditional rulers, which they spend more time with their people in their locality than those who once they collect the whether internally generated revenue or their salary or whatever it is, they will travel to the state capital or they travel to Abuja, Sitwa for the state executive, and they don't know much of what is going on in their state unless there's a tragedy. So those people saying that they know what they are saying, but I think the government can do something about it to close the gap so that they can be closer to the local and get accurate intelligence.
Very interesting. I've heard narratives around some of the communities also being, well, either willing or otherwise, but being some sort of accessories facilitating this. Some have said a lot of them don't have a choice. They're literally coerced into this. But it needs us to be more holistic in our approach to fighting insecurity. But let's take a look at the Guardian, a newspaper. Guardian newspaper speaks to your health, my health, our health. TB, it's not treasury bills, it's tuberculosis, okay? TB gains at risk as funding gap, stigma, and malnutrition persist. And of course, this is in commemoration of World TB Day. The focus is on Nigeria. You see a breakdown right there on the front page. 73% funding gap undermines response, threatens drug supply. And you see budget shortfall, co-infection, there's TB, and there's also HIV, which is sometimes in the mix, complicating treatment and care. There's drug-resistant TB as well. We can talk about the health sector, infrastructure, logistics, limited access for some people, and even the stigma as well. It's 2026, and this is still very much a challenge, as you can see on the front page of the Guardian newspaper. Mr. Fetaya.
Yes, in as much as they recorded some gain, but funding is very crucial, especially when it comes in the health sector. I think the government too, whether local or state or federal government, they can still do more. Most of these funding we get from international donors, and of course, we all know when Donald Trump came in and cut off some funding to some international agencies and say we are no longer going to be doing this. But I think government can take the head of a nation. A healthy nation will bring about a prosperous nation. 73% funding gap undermine the response and threaten drug supply. It's not just all about we have the drugs, but are they getting to those that need it? And also there was a thing that government did about there are some terminal disease that if you want to receive the treatment from the federal or general hospital, whether it's been subsidized to almost reduce about to the maybe 10% or thereabout. I don't know. I've never seen anybody that came out and said we've enjoyed this, but they can still do that. We've recorded so much gain. They can build on that. Release fund come out even as today. Let's even hear what the Ministry of Health will be talking about when it comes to this. What are the channels that people who have these challenges where they can go, even set up a desk in their various local government in some strategic points and locations, even in the state and the federal government, or wherever it is, wherever you are, you can have access to quality healthcare service, especially when it comes to tuberculosis. But just like I said, there are more priorities to them, especially when it comes to things like this. But I think they should be more responsive to what they are elected to do, especially when it comes to the health sector. And also the funding, the budget allocation to the Ministry of Health and all of that, they should it should be increased. And not just only that, how do they dispense this fund? Were they meant for, or the release of fund? Were they properly utilized? So those are the things that should be we should be questioning. We should be asking questions. How much have been released to Health Ministry in the last 3 years, so to say? What are the things or infrastructure they build on guard to commemorate what they have received so far? So those are the things that we should be asking the government, you know, and what are their plans, since they are saying, the experts are saying, the gain that we have recorded, we have risk when it comes to funding gap and stigma and malnutrition persists. What is government doing about it? I think they can come out today and say something and let us know the way forward.
There you go. At least this year, well, the drive is, yes, we can end TB, and it begins with the people. At least it will be driven by the people themselves. A couple of more stories on the front page. El Rufai to face multiple charges in federal and state courts, still on the front page of the Guardian newspaper. And we must make mention of this. Or your government issues heat wave alert, warns of health risks. And if you're staying whether in Lagos or any other part of the country, you may have noticed the excessive heat, which is exacerbated by the poor situation of power supply across the country. So really, this is about the environment. Yes, this is about paying attention to your health, making sure you stay hydrated. It's important never to take these things for granted. And as much as possible, once you see that you're getting weak, take a rest. But this is also about the poor situation of power in the country, because you have people now sleeping outside, literally leaving their windows and doors open. It's almost like punishment, Mr. Fetayo. Well, I know that you are not going through that, because you're maybe 1% of the 1%. But for the rest of us, how long do we have to endure this as a country?
It's just a pity that most of our government, just like anyone else or the citizen, we can identify the problem. But what are they doing about it? Since they privatize the power sector, so to say, and the collapse in electricity, just like I said, this thing in the next, once they make gate 2 steps forward, it's like we're coming back 3 steps backward. But it's everywhere. I got to Niger State yesterday. I had a bite of it, but of course, what can they do? Because if you have power in your house or in your home or your offices, that's when you can bring a kind of bit relief. But I think they should do more of orientation, more advertisement on newspaper, radio, local station, television station, especially when it comes to being dehydrated, that, you are feeling weak, take a rest, take water, all those things should be, painted on our face. But just like I said, as long as it has nothing to do with the election, most of the time they just pay lip services to some of these things. I think these are the issues that should form electioneering, that should form debate going to the election in 2027 general election.
Well, yes, but the electricity bit, we must not lose sight of that. If we're in 2026, if this government has promised to improve power supply, and what we have is still epileptic and quite expensive as well, then that leaves so much more to be desired. Very bad taste, I must say. But Mr. Fetayo, we must thank you for your time. Wish you the best with the heat in Niger State. Stay hydrated. This is to you, and by extension, all Nigerians. We'll be speaking with Mr. David Fetayo.
Yes, of course. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your time. And this is just also an advisory. I mean, you never overemphasize this, the fact that you need to stay hydrated. Try as much as possible not to do too much strenuous work. I know you're asking me, Kaide, I mean, every day is stress already, but you must find a way, because your health is important. You must stay alive. You must stay healthy to be productive and to continue the work that you're doing. So from all of us here, we're asking that you maybe try to take it easy, and to employers as well, this is a good time to take it easy. As much as you want productivity, but you also want to ensure that your staff, members of staff are healthy. If they can work from home, absolutely allow them to work from home. Petrol prices are not smiling. If you're able to add something to what they earn, please do that. If you're able to even prepare a package, Jeffrey, you know, we have organizations that will prepare a care package for you. They'll say, we know you are going through a lot, so take this care package and, you know, use it to get by. Absolutely, let's do that.
I totally agree with you on that one, but mine is people that manage public funds. That's where I'm more interested in. The president and all of us have witnessed the fact that we're having record high numbers, at least in Naira terms, surging numbers for FAC allocation for states, federal and local government. What are the governors doing with that money right now? This war that none of us were part of, we did not sit down to agree that we're going to go to war, but that's the way the world works. We're impacted anyway, and we don't know how it's going to end. You only know when it will start. Yesterday, Donald Trump, the president of the U.S., said, well, talks are making good progress, but Iran said, we don't even know what you're talking about. So the volatility is still on in terms of oil prices, dumping 10 on Brent, and of course WTI on about 9%. And this morning, Brent is selling or trading over $100 and WTI less than $100. What I expect to carry is the fact that enough has happened. Some countries have even planned up to June, just in case. But the federal government of Nigeria, we've not seen any plan. You can't still be planning at this time. The state government, if the federal government is asking, what are you doing? There's only your state I've heard. I don't know whether there are other states. The civil servant, oh yeah, take this 10,000 extra, just so, you know, add to whatever it is you're dealing with. That's an effort. It may not be enough, but it's an effort. That's what we call responsible and responsive. So please, as much as employers who have to do their part, because some do, the people that are managing our commonwealth, please take responsibility. At moments like this, the people need you. It's not just shouting around and seeking re-election. This is governance now. Do what you have to do. That's how it works. We'll take a break, guys. I'll be right back after this. Stay with us.